10 Minutes to Joy is your weekly invitation to reset, recharge, and rediscover your most joyful self through aha moments and simple energy techniques. You're listening to holistic psychotherapist Sylvia Plester-Silk. I've worked with individuals, couples, and groups, and from parole officer to private practice, I've learned a few lessons and I'm ready to share. Today, I want to talk to you about personal agency, personal autonomy, personal authority. I'm realizing that I've been doing a lot of work of late to restore mine. I'm not sure where it got lost along the way. I can't pinpoint an exact moment. I can't exactly say for sure that I ever had it fully. Maybe I don't yet. But let's talk a little bit about how we, or certainly I, had a tendency to seek outside of myself to determine whether what I was thinking or feeling was acceptable or okay. I grew up in a home where there wasn't much space for honest communication and truth. Things got acted out and never spoken of again. And that has a way of undermining your own sense of autonomy because you're trying to figure out what happened and was it real? Was I making a big deal out of nothing? Why did no one else get affected by that? And so on. When I was somewhere in my preteens, I went down to the US with my sister and two nieces and her husband for a weekend where I babysat for them in a hotel room. When we came back to the border, we got stopped. We the car was pulled over and they searched every inch of the car. I mean, they didn't pull the car apart. I was terrorized by that experience. When we got back in the car, my sister and my brother-in-law started giggling and laughing about it. That was hilarious. That was so funny because on that particular occasion, they hadn't brought back stuff, which they normally do. So they felt they had outwitted the authorities. Meanwhile, I was sitting in the tiny back seat in a panicked state. That experience stayed with me for probably decades. Every time I passed a border, I would get anxious, probably looked guilty, even though I rarely brought back more than I was allowed. So these small events, and it wasn't a small event, that was a bloody, scary event that I didn't know ever happened at that point, and no one talked me through. There was no sense of what that meant and what it looked like. And when I got back, I didn't talk about it because I thought it was no big deal, and I kind of shut it down within myself. That when we shut down our experiences like that, we also shut down our personal autonomy or our inner authority. The part of us that knows that something wasn't okay in that experience, and the part of us that emotionally is requiring some level of safety, perhaps. I needed safety created in that moment. I couldn't create it for myself. So I've been discovering and learning and growing and noticing how I have historically given my power away. I gave my power away in that car when I decided that it must just be a joke and I was making a big deal out of something. Oh, there I went being oversensitive again. And so I shut down my inner knowing that that was actually scary and there could have been really negative consequences had it been different. How do we switch from giving away our power to taking our power and fully being in our power? Again, step one is always awareness. Just noticing. When have you snuffed down your own viewpoint to please somebody else? Or when it was too noisy out there, you didn't speak up, or you didn't even own it within yourself. You negated it within yourself, pretending that your viewpoint wasn't legitimate. I think that we need to come into our authority. And by authority and self-authority, I'm not talking about authority over, but I'm talking about that part of ourselves that fully trusts in our knowing, in the way that our beliefs are and our thoughts are and our emotions are. So I can have significant and enough self-trust that I honor whatever I'm experiencing in the moment. And as an adult, I choose to go and get support for it. And I have the capability of doing that. As a preteen, I didn't. And honestly, I don't think that my sister nor brother-in-law were capable of supporting me through it. So, one is awareness. Two is finding people that can help you, that can hold space for you without their viewpoints and without their agenda, so that you can start to explore your edges of where is it. So I'm confident to hear, okay, well, what happens when you get close to that level of confidence or competence? How then do you maybe stall out, not move forward? What's there? It may be historically looking at, where have I given my power away? And we may say that they took their power away. And certainly I have done that. Even of late, I've done that. And I've just noticed how much I do. They did this. I like to think I'm not doing it from a victim point of view, but I can tell that it's very much linked to a hurt, unresolved part of myself. And then I can go into that part and give it some really deep self-compassion and other things that I do, get supported and facilitated around it so that I can explore those edges in a safe space. And then I can start to go, okay, oops. And I just start to naturally stop myself from reaching out to somebody else to get reassurance. I was on a group call this weekend, and I I had said some stuff, and then I got off the call and I started to question myself, and I was going to reach out to some of my peers, and I thought, no, just breathe through this. And in the end, I was actually comfortable with what I said. I didn't need their reassurance, but there was that little bit of, did I overstep again? Was I too strong? Was I too much? And those of you who have been told you're too much, I think you're getting what I'm laying down here, because we're usually not. Last week in a client session, a couple session, um, one of the clients talked about being told they were too much and feeling that their emotions were too much. And in my office, I have the very luxury of holding space for really intense emotion. And I can honestly say that that individual never was too much in my office. And these messages that we get subtly or directly, in her case, it was subtle, and I'm not at liberty to share more, but it's looking at what are the messages and how legitimate they are, and starting to just question from a place of curiosity, not a placement of their judgment onto you or your judgment onto them, but it's like, what's true in this situation? What resonates with me and what doesn't resonate with me? And for those parts that don't resonate, Then it's looking at and using different tools and techniques that we've talked about on the podcast. There's other techniques that you can use. There's a book I have on self-healing. I forget the name of it, or I would share it. So there's a multitude of ways of healing this. I think from my perspective, doing simple cognitive behavioral therapy isn't enough. So thinking through and going, okay, that doesn't make sense because of this, because it doesn't go into the emotional content and emotional experiencing. It doesn't go into looking at what that part needed that they didn't get and energetically helping facilitate them to get what to meet that need, whatever it is. So let's start to look at, where are we giving our power away? Where are we making them more right than us? And where can we expand our boundary of self-knowing and self-trust so that we can have more authority or agency over ourselves? And we can hold ourselves in that inner knowing, in that knowing of self, that I know what my intention was when I did something. I don't have to be afraid of authority in using my example anymore. And I have had a recent experience with an auditor from the government, and I slept through the night and I wasn't panicked. Which sometimes it's looking at, oh, that was a very different experience, and then doing the reverse and going, oh, I've noticed that I've shifted here, and then own the shift because somewhere you've done some great work, but it's time to celebrate and acknowledge that you have this inner knowing. And it may be taking time out from people that are really powerful in your world that tell you what you should think, or that you sort of read the vibe from, that you're not okay somehow, or so on. These things are so multi-leveled for most people that it's not one quick fix, but it's multiple ways of looking at something and doing healing work so that you can shift and you can own yourself, stand proud in yourself, and be who you ultimately are, and be proud of it. That's all for today. Remember, your emotional freedom isn't found in controlling everything around you, but in releasing what no longer serves you. Each breath is an invitation to let go and embrace your most authentic self. Have a great week, and to your autonomy.